Ignition.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Kyle Murphy, and you're listening to Down in the Valley with Appeal.
All right, let's try this again. All right. Welcome, everybody, to episode number 10 of Down in the Valley. Proud and the newest member of the Beautiful Game Network, along with some other USL podcasts like the USL Show, Backchat Show, Mongols, and many others. So be sure to check them out at bgn.fm. And also check out their sponsors, Roughneck Scarves, who are the official scarf supplier of MLS, USL, NCAA, and many more. So today we start with a special guest. He's back, the one, the only, Carson Merck. What's up, Carson?
I don't know, man. That's a heck of an intro. I hope I can back it up.
Nah, of course, man. So what's new, man? What have you been? What are your thoughts on so far on RGVFC preseason?
We're getting closer to actual matches, which is all. We're kind of in that chunk of a couple weeks where it's.
Here, they had been practicing for 2 weeks, and RGVFC had only been practicing for 4 days before that game. You know, so it was going to happen the way that the Dynamo was steamrolled. They did not give up, fighting, like Edson Ochoa said. And then they played against Houston Baptists. They tied, no, my bad. They played against UTRGV. They won that friendly 3-2. Jesus Enriquez scored. Elo Osumba, who had scored against the lone goal against the Dynamo, he scored as well at that game. And Victor Garza actually had an assist that game. He actually assisted Elo Zumba, from what I was told. And then in the third match, they tied 0-0 against Houston Baptist University. One of the things that caught my attention was they were able to get that shutout against them. And then, last week they played against Motagua, but we'll get more into details of that later. So, it's interesting. You've been, Carson, you've been more involved, with the players at a personal level with these interviews that you've had with them. Would you like to talk a little bit of what you asked them? I don't know if you want to go with each player specifically or what.
Sure, yeah. So I've had the opportunity to talk to a few of the guys, a couple that I was familiar with from either last year or 2016, and then a couple of the newer guys. So I think off the top of my head, I've talked to Matt Sanchez, Chuy Enriquez, Francisco Pungo, Todd Wharton, and I'm sure I'm missing one, and that's Kyle Adams. So I think that is all of them. One main thing with all of them, they're really excited, which is always good. Not that a lot of players are going to tell you, yeah, I'm dreading playing in the USL this season, or I really hate RGV. You expect them to say that, but it seems genuine. They're all feeling pretty confident, not only about the team, but also about how they can, individually contribute. So a lot of optimism. I think there's probably a good mix this year of younger guys that have played elsewhere. I know you mentioned Connor Donovan. I've heard he's looked pretty stout in the preseason. But yeah, a lot of optimism, which is good. And, you know, when you're surrounded by optimism, it tends to push things in a good direction.
Yeah, exactly. And they all seem to want to get along really well. They talk about, their goals for RGV this season. That one thing that is common for most of them, if not all of them, is that they really, really want to give the fans, the gift of being back in playoffs.
Yeah, you hear that, the playoffs mentioned a lot, and another thing that you hear mentioned is not only the fans, but also HEB Park. I don't want to say last year's team did a disservice to HEB Park, but you have this, beautiful stadium. It's finally open after kind of a drawn-out process, and then the team doesn't play well. So it's like, great stadium. Sometimes the fan support was good, but the team didn't play great. So I think all of them are eager to, like you said, for the fans and for themselves, get back to the playoffs and also play, competitive soccer, work to the last second, and just put out a good product on the field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think I heard also, who was it? I think it was Todd Warden. Todd Warden, after that Dynamo game, he was mad. Like, it would be almost comical, almost cartoonish, but I'm pretty sure like he had the steam coming out of his head. That's how mad he was after the way that he felt that they played against the Dynamo. And I'm glad that we have players like that they're able to be self-critical about and see what they did wrong, what they as a team did wrong, and know that I don't want to do this again. I don't want to have another showing like this. It's just something that I felt that some players lacked, last year. And
every team is going to lose at some point.
Yes.
It's important to not like losing. If a team, and I'm not saying it was last year's team, but if a team is like, whatever, we lost, no big deal, you're not going to learn from that loss. So, it's all about, if you lose, taking away lessons, being, pissed off, for lack of a better term, and then, moving forward, working hard and correcting the issues that cause you to lose.
Yeah, I mean, you're correct. Obviously there's no perfect team. Not even Real Madrid, not even Barcelona is perfect. They're going to lose eventually. But it's the way that you lose. That's what the difference is. If you lose 6-2 against Sacramento, and you just seems indifferent to you, then frankly, you're not professional enough to play. Why? Anyways, you're not professional enough. More often than not, it's for the good of the team. To always push yourself to be better, even if you're doing great. Always push yourself to be better. And I feel that's what Todd Warden, I believe, that's one of the things you said in your interview today with that you released with Todd Warden, that you feel that he is the player to be our next captain.
Yeah, in my opinion, he definitely is probably the front runner for that. He's been here for 3 years. He didn't play at all. I think in the first season he had a foot injury, but to be a guy who's been around, so he not only played the full season last year, but he was around that 2016 team, which finished second in the Western Conference. So he knows what a hardworking team and a quality team does. I think he's gonna take a big step this year. He looked great in the preseason playing with Houston, and so I think he'll be a big boost. He's steadily improved, coming back from that foot injury. So I think it's going to be a big year for him. I think, and kind of taking that, Charlie Ward role, possessing the ball deeper in the midfield.
Yeah. So let me just take a little quick time to say hi to everybody in the chat. Yeah, I do see that there is some lag going on with the video. Where I'm placed at right now, where my computer's placed at right now, is really not perfect. So I'm sure it'll be fine. If things get really bad, then I'll just upload the actual recording version. I'm recording while I'm live streaming. I'm actually recording it. So if it's that bad, as far as the live stream goes, then I'll put up the recorded version of this episode. So don't worry. Also take advantage, like whoever's here in the chat, Harry, Johnny, Chad, Cisco, Blues fan. If you guys have any questions for Carson, be sure to put him in the chat. I'm sure he'd be very happy to ask some questions, regarding some of the players, how he feels about them or anything like that. So be sure to put up in the chat. So actually, we got one right here. So Omar Beltran, he says, do you think that some players don't play well, or better said, don't put effort on the pitch knowing it's a developmental league? Or what do you think is going on? I'm pretty sure he means last year's team.
I don't think the players that are on the USL team would have that mindset of it being just a developmental league where, who cares? Maybe in the sense of a player that's loaned down from the first team. I can't think of any specifically from the Dynamo, but the way the USL has progressed since I've been covering it for, I think this is my 4th year now, that the league has taken so many steps that it's not just a, kind of fly by, the seat of their pants league. It's, low level. It really has taken big steps. So I think the players that are there know, okay, we can see a pathway. Mamo, Charlie Ward, Kevin Garcia, George Malky, Eric Bird. Sure, again, I'm missing a few, but you can see a clear pathway from RGV to Houston. So I would assume that players would have the mindset of, I'm really going to, work my tail off to get there.
Yeah, and I feel like, for example, with these hybrid teams like Real Monarchs, like Reno, like RGV, the ones that are being scouted, you can say, by the MLS teams, for the most part, all of the players on the team, they want to see themselves in the first team. Kyle Adams said so this past weekend. And then, that week he was here in Houston, training with the team. So it's a bigger motivation. I feel it may have been something else that what happened last year. I guess maybe they weren't comfortable. I know, like I said, there were some players that, just didn't put in 100% of their efforts. I don't know exactly what that reason is. We'll never know. In the end, we have, for the most part, a brand new squad this season, and it has the potential to be a competitive team this time. We've also got some players that are going to be coming in this week from the Dynamo. We've already gotten Padilla. We've got Padilla, who's training with RGV right now. He was one of the Dynamo's draft picks for the season. We've also got a couple other players, from not only from the Dynamo, but there was actually one that was that came out in RGVFC's Instagram. He was actually drafted by DC United, if I'm not mistaken, but it appears that Dynamo has him for this season. And they actually, it came out in pictures, yesterday during the day. We have, Sheldon Sullivan. We have Pablo Aguilar, like I mentioned. Leo Castillo, who's another goalkeeper. We have Nicolas Perea. David Cabrera. David Cabrera is another one. And Afonso... You remember his name, Carson? Afonso, is it?
Something with a P, I think, but I'm not positive. I wasn't familiar with him.
Yeah. So
and I believe I also saw Robert Castellanos from, I want to say he's been with Galaxy, maybe Los Dos in the past couple of years.
Oh yeah. He was there as well, and so we got a couple of talented young guys that I think we have yet to see their full potential. And I know one of my quirks, I was talking to a friend of mine, is that I feel like maybe before I knew about these players, I felt that we might have, some sort, lack of depth in the striker position. But it appears that, they see that Afonso Piñeiro, that's his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, Afonso Piñeiro was his name. And so he's going to be a good addition to the team. We've also got, like I said, Aguilar in the central attacking midfielder position, who
he's one I've heard really good things about from a couple of different people. So I think he's going to be. I think he plays, primarily in that number 10 spot. So I think he could be. That's kind of one of the guys that I really bookmarked based on what I was hearing back from people around the team that he might be a stud.
Yeah. So how would you describe for the fans who are watching us right now? How would you describe Pablo Aguilar from what they've told you?
From what I'm hearing, he's just that. Exactly what you're looking for in number 10. Great playmaker, decent pace, good on the ball. So there hasn't been, if you look back at the last 2 seasons, there hasn't really been a bona fide number 10 for the Toros in either year. You had quality players, and Emilio Garcia kind of played there a little bit at times, but to have somebody who's truly a number 10, obviously can unlock some more abilities from that striker up top.
Yeah, I really prefer formations with a cam and with a natural player that is natural for that position. I feel that'll bring a good play style to the team. That creator, that someone who's gonna create the plays to Francisco Pungo, to Jesus Enriquez. Give those balls in a position where they'll be able to score, or opening them up, setting up the wingers to cross it to whoever's in the striker position. So, and then with two in the back, which is more likely what's going to happen, because that's what I've been seeing. 2 behind the attacker, 2 central defensive midfielders. I think we might actually see a balanced team this season. A team like Gerson Echeverri said, that will have attack, will have some attacking power, but they will not, leave behind. They won't forget about defending, especially at home.
Yeah, I hope we have balance, and my main goal going into the season for the team is identity. I know you and I went over this 100 times on the Peel last year.
Yes.
When you watch a match, you want to be able to say, okay, our strategy is possession. Our strategy is counterattack. Our strategy is, long balls over the top, whatever it is. And last year, if you turned on 5 different matches, you saw 5 different attempts at a strategy from the team. So I think establishing whether it's back to 2016 where you're possession-based, or if it's 2017 Dynamo and you're counterattacking, whichever it is, play to your players, your strengths, and drive that strategy rather than flip-flopping back and forth.
Mm-hmm. And make sure that not only your starting 11 knows what they're doing, but also your bench players as well, so that way they don't come in and they're lost because they don't know what they're doing or how each other plays. Yeah, Johnny, it's true. Junior had them all over the place. He had no identity, no play style, no defined play style, and that really hurt the team until the end, where the team started to get on their groove, started playing spoiler, like Carson said last season, but it was too little too late, So we've actually got, Johnny also asked about TJ Kastner if he was released. He was released from RGVFC.
Yeah, I have not seen or heard him being back with the team. I talked to him not too long ago, and he wasn't, sure what was coming up in the future. So I would like to have him back. I thought he was a quality winger. I don't know why Junior didn't play him at the start of last season, but I guess that ship has sailed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm not positive. At this point, my guess would be we don't see Kastner this year, but I've been wrong before.
Well, the thing about it is we're already nearing the beginning of the season, and if you're going to be adding more players, you might as well do it now because we have 2-3 weeks before the March 16th. So if you need to develop the chemistry between the team, and if you're wanting to bring in another player like the day before, that's not going to help. So if they're going to make a decision on Kastner, it should have been done yesterday, But so that's why I feel that TJ Kastner may not come back to RGV, and he had potential. Hopefully, he's able to find another team that will be able to use his talent that we all know that he has, because he was actually another one of those standouts both in the first season and the second season. So I actually have a quick question from Harry. He says, how many teams do you think the USL will stop at? We have 33 this year, bringing in at least 6, not counting Miami FC and ASL. Of course, there will be some that leave. So, what do you think?
I mean, shoot, at this pace, you could be talking about 200 teams by tomorrow. But I don't know. I would guess maybe in the 36 to 38 range. I mean, maybe you get up to 40. That's a big league. One thing I would almost guarantee is next year there's 3 conferences, which helps alleviate that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But you're definitely going to have teams like Harry said that are going to come into the league. You're going to have teams that leave. So I think it's just all about finding sustainable teams. It's not good for any fan base or league if you have 3 teams join each season and 5 teams leave, or 6 teams join and 4 teams leave. Just turnover is not great.
Yeah. Yes, I honestly believe that even though the country is as far as land-wise, it's big, but there comes a point where having too many teams on a league will prove like too much for the central management of a league. So there has to be a cap somewhere, especially now that we're going to have D3 coming in 2019. So I'm guessing the last ones may be Austin, El Paso. The other 2 that were announced, I believe, was in Memphis. And there's rumors that Albuquerque might also join the USL. So, it also has to take into consideration that now we're going to have 3 conferences. How many teams do you want per conference? So if you're assuming maybe 12 teams per conference, you're probably thinking of maybe 36 maximum.
Yeah, I think 36 is probably a pretty decent number. And then as far as D2 and D3, I know Harry mentioned which teams might drop down.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely some of those MLS 2 teams that are angling that way. Swope Park, I think, had the chance to either improve their stadium or solidify their agreement where they were playing last year and the year before, and they decided, no thanks, we're just going to play, I think it's like a high school.
Yeah.
So I think it's fair to say Swope Park, not too interested in playing at the top level of USL. So there's definitely going to be those teams that are like, we're just trying to develop. We're not trying to win championships that will drop down, I would say. Definitely at least a few.
Yeah, I was listening to the USL show, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, where they had an interview with Jake Edwards about that. They asked him, if Pro Rail going to be, something that is being discussed for the future, But one of the things that he mentioned was regarding MLS2 teams. And he said that most MLS teams that they had talked to, they mentioned that it was more than likely that their two teams will be play in D3 because they felt that, D3 might be more to their vision as to what they want with their two teams, which is development rather than actually competing. And that actually also will help out D2. You got in which you'll have mostly independent teams or hybrids that actually want to compete for the USL Cup, to bring up, I guess you can say the spectaculo, of the game. So we'll see what happens with that. There are going to be a lot of questions as to how they're going to be doing, promotion and relegation. If D3 is going to have two conferences and D2 is going to have three, how are you able to do, if you want pro rel, how are you going to accommodate that? It's growing pains for a league that has been growing these past years, but so far they're on the right track. So
they definitely, the USL definitely goes about things the right way. I know the NSL came up in the chat here. NASL did not do things the right way. They tried to do things the filing lawsuits way, and that didn't work out so well. So yeah, I think USL definitely exponentially has grown since I've been covering it. It's been doing it in a healthy, productive way, which is good.
Yeah, I think one of the teams that I was talking about regarding NASL is the problem that they were too busy looking at the faults of USSF, of MLS, and USL, rather than looking at their own faults, why teams were folding left and right. And so, they were too busy trying to compete with MLS that they never realized the problems that they were having inside their own home. And in the end, it just came to bite them in the butt. And sadly, well, now they're gone. And that doesn't help the U.S. soccer in general, the state of U.S. soccer. But, if you're not going to do things the right way, might as well just fold and let somebody else who has a better plan, take that position of D2, which is the USL.
Yeah, it sucks for not only, like you said, the soccer landscape. I grew up in Northeast Ohio, so I was young when the Browns left, but it just sucks as a fan. I mean, everyone can kind of joke. I know I sent out a funny tweet. I think you did as well about NASL dying. For the fans, it sucks. But with that, it kind of clears everything out a little bit. It's going to be really interesting to see. I know I also tweeted that there's some really talented players in that league, and some of the teams are going to be playing in the NPSL, which is a purely developmental league. So that will be real interesting to see how those matches go. But it kind of clears things out. But yeah, you never want to see a city lose a team that they love. But sometimes that's how it goes.
Yeah, no, it's sad seeing the player that some players, and especially the fans, they're not from one day to the next. They lost their hometown team. It sucks for them, but also they've got to ask the questions: why did this happen? Why did their front office not take steps into avoiding what just happened? So somebody's got to have to take the blame. And it's up to the fans to put pressure, like maybe look into other options. Now teams like Miami, Jacksonville, Armada, yes, you're going to be playing the NPSL. You're going to be very OP this year. But if the NASL does not come back anymore, there's always USL. So, you got to keep your options open, no matter what. So, you have anything else you want to talk about, Carson?
No, I'm just excited to see as the roster kind of officially take shape. You see some more player announcements. Hopefully, I'll definitely keep the player interviews coming at Dynamo Theory. But it's going to be a fun couple weeks as everything kind of tightens up. You really see what the team's going to look like, and then first game coming up not too far out against St. Louis.
Yep, the March 16th, the home opener. All right, please tell me you have a little teaser of which player's next for your player interviews.
That's actually a good question. I have a couple in the works. As far as a teaser, I would say one of them is a former Dynamo draft pick, and the other is a defender. Actually, yeah. So we'll go with those tips. We'll see what actually comes to fruition. Maybe I lied on both of them.
All right, looking forward to it. So where can they find you?
They can find me on Twitter at Carson A. Merck, and they can find all of my RGV news and player features on dynamotheory.com, the Bull in its horns.
All right, Carson. So thank you for being on the show today. Really enjoy your articles. Keep them coming, and good luck to your Las Vegas Lights, because from what you told me, they're really gonna need it.
Yeah, that is true.
And going back, what I was telling you was it yesterday. It's hilarious how Vegas has them with higher odds of winning the championship than RGV. But I mean, whatever.
I think that's a hometown discount.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, Carson, take care.
All right, buddy.
All right. Take it easy. Bye. You too. All right, guys. So, want to say hi, obviously, to my dad, Javier Ochoa, Harry, Blues fan. We have Chad Jackson as well. Johnny, what's up? More llamas. All right, Carson. If you can get an interview with one of the Las Vegas Lights llamas, I'm pretty sure the chat is gonna love you. So I'll leave that up to you. Oh yes, Johnny. Yeah, that is true. So apparently, the Las Vegas Lights front office charges their supporters $20 so that they can use their flags. Now, I'm not sure if they don't let the fans bring their own, but I'm pretty sure. So Carson, if you're still listening, be sure to let us know how that works, because I mean, if they're charging $20, I'm pretty sure they're not allowing them to bring their own flags, so that way they can get some money. But I mean, I find that sad that you as a fan, you're trying to bring in color, you're trying to bring in atmosphere to a stadium. And they're not, and the team, because they want to make an extra buck, are not letting you do it. If that's the case, come on. I mean, I understand that you're in your team, you are Vegas, you're going to be extravagant, but not like this. Please, they should really reconsider that. That does not help out the sport. Comes with a coupon. I'm not going to talk about that. Let's keep this PG, guys. Seems legit. All right, so if you guys have any more questions, be sure to put them up in the chat. You guys want to say hi, of course, I'll go ahead and say hi to every one of you, like I said. So going back, this past Saturday, RGVFC had a friendly against Motagua, who is actually right now the #1 team in Honduras. They played last week, like I told you all last week. They played in the Champions League at HEB Park, and so they decided to take advantage, and instead of traveling right away to Tijuana, they decided to stay till Sunday, and on Saturday they played a friendly against RGVFC. Carson, I actually got to walk onto the pitch behind the Llamas last match. Dude, that's super cool. But so is it true, Carson, the whole $20 flag rental? And do they even let fans bring their own? So Motagua played at HB Park on Saturday, and it was really interesting because, as you know, RGVFC still had a lot of trialists, and Motagua actually played with like half starters, half bench. So they were going to take this game seriously because they really needed to prepare for their game against Tijuana, which was yesterday. And so Motagua actually came out strong. They came out really strong. Although I have to say that it was RGVFC that may have been a little starstruck. I don't want to say starstruck. More like, they got nervous. There was, because you're playing against one of the top teams in CONCACAF. And for a trialist who's maybe not even had, professional experience, it might be kind of overwhelming. So in the 4th minute, Motagua scored first. It was Kevin Lopez on a free kick, which I have to say was horribly defended. So basically, it was the free kick outside the box by Kevin Lopez towards the left side of the field. He kicks it in. It bounces inside the box, and then it heads straight toward Motagua attacker. It's heading towards the first post. The Motagua attacker ducks, lets the ball go over him. Matt Sanchez was not expecting that. I'm assuming he was expecting the Motagua player to head it in or change the direction of it, because it totally caught him off guard, and it went into where basically a goalie's supposed to be when, in the second post, because in the first post you obviously have the wall that's supposed to take care of it. Now, another thing that from that play was that Motagua player was alone. They lost the marking on that play. And in other subsequent free kicks, they had a lot of trouble defending when it came to free kicks. So the defenders have to work on that a lot. I mean, I understand, yes, the level of play between Motagua and RGVFC, and especially when they're in preseason, it's a vast difference. But it's simple things like that that come up, that the level going up against these level of opponents, they make you see things that you probably may have not have noticed when you're playing against university level players, NCAA, so which I felt was good that we had this, that the players had this experience, to see all these things, how a top level team for CONCACAF plays against them, and you'll see from the second half, Motagua took advantage of space that were left open by the defenders with through balls and then crosses towards the second post. It's going to be a good experience for the defenders as well. So that happened in the 4th minute. Like I said, Kevin Lopez free kick. If you want to read the article, it's down in the RGV.com. It's in English and in Spanish. So, and then a couple minutes later, Motagua scored the second. Estupiñán actually assisted Germán Mayenfish inside the box. So it was you can say kind of sweaty goal, like the ones you score in FIFA, where you got it's two against the goalkeeper, and you just pass it to your teammate who's alone in the box, and he just taps it in. It was kind of like that. That was the second goal. Yeah, Chad. Yeah, exactly. You do get exposed when you play a team like that, because they have so much more experience than you do. So they analyze things better. So they see things that maybe USL or trialist players haven't learned yet. They know how to read defenders. They know how to read attackers, and they're able to defend better against you. Obviously, it's like the game last year against Monterrey. You're going up against one of the most dominant teams in Liga Vancomer MX. Granted, they haven't won a championship because, regular season is not the same as postseason. But they're a really good team. In regular season, they usually dominate. And so Monterrey took the chances that RGVFC presented to them. And they didn't care it was a friendly. They didn't care that it was the opening game of their stadium. They were there to play like a professional should. Balls out, going all out and taking advantage of scoring. And that really helps a team that is in the process of learning everything. Because Granted, you may not see some of these plays that Motagua did against RGVFC in the regular season in the USL because the talent isn't comparable yet. But at least you're preparing for things that might happen, and you're more prepared that if they do happen during the regular season, you know how to defend against it now. And you have the tapes, probably, from Saturday's game. So Carson says, "Oh, it's a deposit." Oh, okay, I see what you mean. So, and then in the 13th minute, that was when Motagua scored the third goal of the game, and so that one was actually, if I'm not mistaken, it started with a throw-in from the left side. The ball gets to Marco Vega. He dribbles it inside and it was in the air. And then he shoots it from outside the box in the volley. It was impossible for Matt Sanchez to block it. And that was 3-0 in the 13th minute. Now, any other team, down 3-0 so early in the game, they would have just given up. But not RGVFC. And I got to hand it to the guys. They saw the opportunity. Hey, you know what? Dust off. Yeah, shake it off. Vámonos. Got to continue. We got to bounce back. We have to bounce back. One of the things that and Jesus Enrique said, he was like, after the game, he's like, during the first half, we got more confidence. You know, we started going forward. We were going back too much, and going forward helps a lot. So in the beginning, they were kind of scared of Motagua. They were scared of going in and attacking them, going one-on-one against them. So they tried to play conservatively, passing the ball back. And in those cases, you know, a lot of the times their passing was not accurate, or Motagua was actually pressuring them in their own field, you know, looking for the error. And so when you keep the ball near your box, you're very likely, if you make an error, if they take the ball away from you, you leave yourself very vulnerable, especially against a team like that. So they figured, you know, we have to attack. We have to get the ball as far away from our area as possible, and that's what they did. You know, in the let me see what. So it was around the 20th minute. One of our trialists, I really don't know who it was. And the reason why, more often than not, we don't know who the trialists are is because there's actually a USL rule that tells the social media managers of USL teams that you, as a community manager, you cannot post the name of your trialists on social media unless they've already signed with the team. So that's why there's very, I don't want to say incomplete information about these past games, but it's because of that. The USL says you cannot post their names. So it's a really interesting rule. You know, what can we do? If it's a league thing, then I understand. So, but basically, in the 20th minute, there was a shot from outside the box from another one of our trialists. The goalkeeper, Harold Fonseca of Motagua, he makes he throws himself up in the air, grabs the ball, very acrobatic style of catching, but when he falls down on the ground, the impact causes him to lose the ball and right into the feet of the attacker, who just taps it in. So that was the first goal for RGVFC. Then a couple minutes later, in the 37th minute, Victor Garza from the beautiful goal. I liked it. So Victor Garza from almost a little bit ahead of the half line mark, he just takes the ball with him. He just dribbles it, leaves two defenders behind, enters inside the box, and he pretty much curves the ball. He shoots the ball and he curves it around Harold Fonseca into the second post. Beautiful goal, beautiful build-up, counterattack. You know, that's one of Victor Garza's fortes. And I'm glad that now for this season, they're actually going to have him in his natural position, which is, you know, being a winger. You know, more attacking-oriented rather than a left back, which they had him last year. Granted, he didn't do a bad job, but it's better to have players in their original positions and not try to, on the fly, invent positions for players, which is going to take time for them to adapt if they ever adapt. So before the halftime, RGVFC was actually really close to tying the game. But then also before halftime, Motagua actually had another chance, another goal that they scored, but it was invalidated by the referee, who stated that there was a foul by the attacker. So he nullified that goal. So it was by halftime it was 3-2. Let's check around. Yeah, Chad. I didn't know about that rule either, but that's what they told me. I asked around at the game, and that's what they told me. It's a USL rule. That's why also, like San Antonio, whenever they actually post their formations, it says, like, if they're signed, it says their name, but if they're not, it just says trialist. So that's actually really, really interesting. So, all right, who else is in the chat right now? Yeah, Johnny, shout out to Angie and Caroline. Big shout out to both of you. Un abrazo. So then we come back to the second half. RGVFC has to rotate their squad. They put in a couple bench players, third stringers in the game. Motagua, stunned of the RGVFC's reaction, they start putting in their main players, like the rest are their starters. They brought in two really good players who are Carlos Discoa and Rubilio Castillo. Rubilio Castillo is their attacker, their number 9. And they took advantage. They really took advantage of RGVFC in the second half. So most of the plays in the second half were a connection between those two players. And in the goals, the fourth and the fifth goal, they proved very lethal. So more often than not, you would see Motagua, because Carlos Discoa, he's more of a midfielder, but he has a knack for making runs, in between defenders. And so the Motagua knows that whenever he does a run, you got to give him a through ball. And RGVFC could not we're having a hard time defending against them. The second and third stringers were having a hard time defending against that. So there were a couple times where they were really close. There were a couple times where Carlos Discoa makes a run. They pass it to him. He sends the pass towards the goal, towards the striker that was coming in. But he probably passed it a little bit too hard or a little bit too far in front of the striker, and he couldn't make it to the ball in time to just tap it in. But the fifth I think it was the fifth goal that was like that, where Carlos Discoa made the through ball, and that time he ends up finding Rubilio Castillo, so who just tapped it in. In the fourth goal, it was actually another shot from outside the box. That was gonna be pretty hard for Matt Sanchez to actually that time it was not Matt Sanchez. I believe it was Nico Cordy. I don't know, but they took advantage of that long shot. So that was it for the game. The game ended 5-2 in favor of Motagua. We had a lot of Hondurans that made the trip, or local Hondurans that were there, fans of Motagua. And really, I have to say, I really appreciate their support, being able to make it out to HEB Park. More than anything as well, reading my articles of that game, they stayed informed, following me on Twitter that game to catch up to everything that's happening in the game, because Motagua's Twitter account did not post anything, and RGVFC's, well, they had to keep it vague, so they were out there, and because the game was not televised, so they had no idea how everything was going on with the game. So big shout out to the Twitter page Loco por Motagua. that shared my article over there in Honduras. Big shout out to if there's any Honduran fans that are watching the live stream right now. Un abrazo, and thank you for your support. So that was it. Hey, what's up, Ray? What's up, David? What's up? If you guys keep on having questions, we're actually gonna have Ray on in a little bit. It is 8:04. So let me just go ahead and wrap up the RGVFC segment, and we'll head a little bit talking about the season wrap up of the Barracudas. We'll talk CONCACAF as well with Ray and I. So be sure to stick around. If you guys have any questions about RGVFC, Barracudas, or whatever topic we're talking about in this next hour, be sure to let me know here in the chat. So as we also know, this Friday, RGVFC is going to play against their bitter rivals, San Antonio FC. And San Antonio FC, Harry, they have won most of their games, their preseason games, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, so Chad is actually correct. So RGVFC and San Antonio, they're going to be playing 90 minutes, regular match, plus after the game ends, they're going to play another 35 minutes extra as a scrimmage. So if you actually make it to San Antonio to watch this game, be sure to stick around because they're pretty much giving you 35 free minutes for your ticket. So they tied New England Revolution 3-3 in Tucson. And they've also been playing against some other universities. I know they played UTRGV, and I believe they won, excuse me, I believe they won 2-0? They beat FC Dallas Reserves 2-0 as well. Did they play? Right, it was 2-0 against UTRGV. So, and then right now they have players like Sonny Guadarrama, who is an ex-Liga MX, Ascenso MX player, as long as you also have Cheno Guzman. Yeah, so they beat 3 local colleges 2-0. So they're on a roll. But then again, most of their lineup is back from last year. So that is something also you have to look at. Is that RGVFC pretty much started from scratch, and San Antonio FC, they had a base lineup. Sure, they lost some players like Billy Forbes, but most of their lineup stayed. You added other players like Mickey Lopez, like Sonny Guadarrama. So it's a pretty much a stable squad. So it'll be interesting to see how RGVFC stacks up against them. Obviously, there's still a lot of room to grow for both teams. So, although honestly, for me, I'm one who, if it's a rivalry, you want to win all games when you go against a rival. But if for whoever loses, take it with a grain of salt. Both teams are still building, looking forward to the 2018 season. Once the season starts, once the regular season starts, that's when you can say, be worried if your team, whether it's RGVFC or San Antonio, lose the rivalry, because that's when it counts. I'd rather lose to Friday's game and win all of the times that we play San Antonio in the regular season than winning the one on this Friday and losing the ones from regular season. And I'm sure people like San Antonio fans like Harry would agree with that. So, yeah. So they lost Billy Forbes. They lost Sebastian Ibiaga. He moved to NYCFC on a transfer. I have to say, it wasn't just like, it wasn't like RGVFC where they just grab. and just move them to the MLS team. No, they actually NYCFC actually had to pay money to San Antonio to get Sebastian Ibeaga. Pretty much, Johnny. But then again, we're in a third year, and so sadly, I know Ray was telling me last time that the first 3 years of a team are highly important to know what the future of the team will hold. So hopefully this is the last time we'll have to deal with something like this in regards to having to start with a completely different squad the next year or start starting from a different coach. Hopefully now with Gerson we actually have some stability and we can build up from there. We can get some good results. We can start building up a fan base. And, hopefully in the future, we actually fill out the stadium. But it all comes down to how front office handles their stuff. If the marketing is crap, like it has been this past few seasons, then you can only do so much. So I trust that we're going to have a good year this year. And if you are able to make it to the San Antonio game, be sure to catch me and Sean over there. We'll be over there. Go by and say hi. I know Harry's actually going to be pitching his first couple of beers. So thank you, Harry. Yeah, and it's true. But, there's not really much we can do except keep the pressure on them. And that's exactly why this podcast was created. So that way front office knows that if things aren't being done the right way, then there's going to be somebody on them. It's like, hey, do this right. Because I do not want another Bravos. I do not want another Grandes. Because they destroyed everything. No, I know, Harry, just messing with you. And they destroyed these teams. And there was nobody to blame. Well, not really. More than anything, nobody took the blame. And it was just kind of shoved under the rug. And nobody paid for their mistakes. So with RGVFC, we don't want that to happen again. And to all the fans, just let you know, you guys have a voice in this podcast as well. If you guys I want to do something like the Peel's going to be doing, and that is if you're at the game and you record yourself, talking about the game, whether halftime or after the game or full time, and you start talking like what you think about the game, what was good, what was bad, send it to me. Tag me on Twitter, and I'll be sure to share it because you guys also have a voice in this. It's not just me. I'm just a guy who has a webcam and has a microphone. That's it. I'm just like you all. And you guys have every right to have a voice in this podcast as well. So, ¿qué onda, Victoria? So Harry says their backline is still a mess. McCarthy has not played yet. Thank you, Victoria. So I know I'm listening to Coach Powell that he feels this match next week versus Tulsa are dress rehearsals for the season. So they expect the team won. Sure, David. I like food, and that's sad because I've gained a lot of weight these couple of months that I've been here in Houston. But whatever, taco review, football review, beer review. If you're into that stuff, heck, I'll be sure to share it. The point is that I want the fans to participate as well. So with that said, we're gonna go on a little break right now, and when we get back, we'll be talking with Ray Silva. Like I said, we're going to be talking about kind of a season review of the Barracudas, what he knows about FC Brownsville, and we'll talk about the CONCACAF Champions League. And if you guys still have any questions regarding RGVFC, we'll be more than happy to talk about it as well during his segment. So we'll be back in a little bit. And don't go away. Oh, be sure to leave a like down at the bottom. It really helps a lot. Be sure to also check out the Beautiful Game Network at bgn.fm, but check out all the other USL podcasts as well. Really recommend it. Check out their sponsors, Roughneck Scarves, who they're the official supplier of NCAA, USL, and MLS teams for their scarves. Also, check out downintheRGV.com. The address is right down there. Check out my articles. The podcasts are there as well. Check out also the downloads. You know, I got some wallpapers there for your phone, for your desktop. We got some kits, RGVFC kits for if you've ever played this app called Dream League Soccer. Download those and make RGVFC or whatever. Or let me know if you guys want me to make some other teams in the USL or the MLS that you want to have in that application, as well as FIFA también. So we'll be right back in a little bit. So don't go away. Share the video.
Hey, my name is TJ Kastner, and you're listening to Down in the Valley with the Peel.
Hi, I'm Christian Lucatero, and you're listening to Down at the Valley with the Peel.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome once again to everybody who's on there, who's participating in the chat. Thank you all so much. Be sure to check out bgn.fm, the Beautiful Game Network. Be sure to check out Down in the RGV. Check out also our friends from the Peel, thepeellive.com. So we're back, and we're now going to be talking about the Barracudas. And our guest today, we would like to welcome back Ray Silva. What's going on, Ray?
Hey, man. Good evening. How are you? Things are going pretty good.
So, as we know, the Barracuda season is over, and going by the record, it wasn't that great. But what have you got to say? What's your review? What have we learned? What do we learn from this experience, their first year experience in the MASL?
Well, there was a lot of learning to do this first year. We didn't have a full-fledged office, full-time staff members. That's just from an administration standpoint. And then you have most of the players that were really happy despite the results. And talking to management in the past few days, there will be some wholesale changes coming, but until I get further within the next few weeks, because there's still a lot of things to tie up in the loose ends, and then we both the general manager and myself have to vote on a lot of issues for like league MVP, rookie of the year, and comeback player of the year, and whatnot. So there's still a lot of stuff to be done. I mean, we were like the first team to like officially finish the season. And so right now you still got some playoff spots to be tied up and the regular season to finish before the playoffs start.
How heartbreaking was it for the owners or were they already expecting something like this? Was it heartbreaking for the owners to miss playoffs?
Well, it's definitely a yes, because I've seen them work since their days in with the Brownsville Barracudas, and now that they've finally got to play in a place that wasn't theirs, they saw a lot of the hardships that was going on, and obviously, management and I we've gone. We probably had to do the job of like 6 different people for like two people, you know. And it was just something that was a total challenge that we took it up, and we just now we know what to do for next year, and that's going to be something that will be discussed towards the end of the next couple of weeks, or right before the MASL playoffs start, you know, is to put everything together, put a plan together, and piece out and hash out everything else. That way we won't have the same result like we did this past year.
Yeah, you really don't want these results to continue. Obviously, you know, every team wants to make it to the playoffs, but when you're kind of limited on what you have, you know, it's
I mean, we were very, very limited on resources to begin with.
Yes,
and we saw ourselves a lot of the times just short on time for like office hours and whatnot, and we'd even have to put in some extra hours in the office, you know. And there was times where I would come home like 9 to 10 p.m. every night, only to show up the next day to the office at around 11 to catch up on what was left behind. And yes, it did take its toll at some point in the season, but I mean, I never put my head down. I never gave up, and it was just something that management applauded for me for just being there, and it's just something that we're gonna have to I guess strategize for next year.
Yeah. And I mean, we were talking about that last week. Oh no, actually, earlier this week. It was on Monday. You know, we were talking about how limited most of these teams in the MASL and the league in general, how financially limited they are. You know, there was actually some talk in the.
This isn't sometimes about financials. A lot of the times it's just the resources that are just available to us. You look at San Diego, you look at Baltimore, you look at Milwaukee. Those are 3 fine examples of teams that, let's just say that, yes, do they have arena issues? Of course. But they make the most of what they have with their arenas.
Mm-hmm.
And basically they don't work out of those arenas. They probably have to house their offices outside of those places, just due to the resources of what they've had, you know. And yet they've been real successful teams throughout the years. I mean, this San Diego's a great example. I mean, they've got a great coaching with Phil Salvaggio and Phil Bowers. I mean, they just do a tremendous job, and that's just something that we get to emulate down here in the Valley. And it's just something that it's not for the lack of funding. It's not for the lack of resources. It's just about getting the right people, getting the right, and having the right plan in place to execute for the off season. And right now, I mean, yes, the season's still going on. We still have to do a few compliance issues here and there, and it's just right now our off season is beginning, and I can tell you off the top of the bat that the World Mini Football Federation is going to be having like regional tournaments now. Like, I know the Americas is going to happen during the summer, but the first regional tournament is going to be in Europe, where Romania is like the top heavy team there, followed by Spain, Italy, and England. which has fed a lot of players into the MASL, and management is going to be going to that tournament to see if they can catch a prospect or two from there, and hoping that we can get all of our legalities sorted out once our season number 2 kicks off.
Yeah, try to have the complete roster as soon as possible, and getting to work on that chemistry. So going back with these teams, what do you think Ray Silva, who have been in contact, you mentioned, with other MASL teams like the Flash,
Okay.
So what you mentioned about knowing how to use those finite amount of resources, is that the number one key to being a successful team in the MASL?
Yes, I truly believe so, because the more you do with those resources that you have, it does take its toll during the season, especially with the amount of spread travel that we were talking about on Monday. That that takes around either to 70 to 80%, depending on your team location. I mean, I can tell you that when Baltimore had to make those trips to Milwaukee, Kansas City, and St. Louis, I mean, you're talking about long haul trips overnight, or when they had to play us deep south into Florida. So you just got to have about 90% of budget just specifically set for travel and meals alone.
That's a really high number.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that other 10%, you'd have to split that 5% to marketing, and then the 5% to resources that we may need. Like this year, the league got sponsored by MITRE, official game ball provider of MASL, and even they had a little bit of issues delivering game balls, but and those things don't come cheap either. But we make the best with the resources that we had, and making sure that the fans would return them during the games.
Yeah, it's also true. They always want to take the game ball. You always see it on TV. Even in the MLS and others. Like obviously most of them will throw it back. There's some others that are trying to hide it underneath their shirt, and I'm pretty sure that always happens in the MASL. But it's really.
No, generally the fans have been pretty good about returning that.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, but so from what you've seen, do you expect for Barracudas to do a complete overhaul of the roster, or are they?
I could see them keeping a hold of 4 players, actually. And I wouldn't be surprised if that number increments up to 6, maybe 7. I'm pushing it. But that there will be a complete roster overhaul. There will be, only because the results weren't there, basically. They weren't there. And there were some players that, they kind of had that lackadaisical attitude, and Coach Quiroz wasn't very happy about that. But it's just something that that moving forward, it's just something that now's the time to start planning and what's going to be available for us in the market once the season ends.
Yeah, and I actually have a question. I actually have a really good question from Omar. So we've talked about.
I'm looking at the question myself too.
Yeah.
So don't worry.
Yeah. So I know we talked about this before, but go ahead and explain how that scouting process works for Barracudas?
Well, here's the thing. Most of our roster is 70% of our local talent. Two of the players that signed on, one of them came from the tryout. He was a local player. He played for McAllen High School. He's an excellent defender, Miguel Rocha. And then you had Emmanuel Garcia, who had the with the Brownsville Rivera, played collegiately for Laredo Community College, and once he didn't have a formal offer out there, whether it was an NAIA school or maybe even a Division 1, 2, or 3 campus, he decided to turn pro. So Coach Quiros did do a decent job finding a lot of the local talent, and you even mentioned this player, Julio Reyes.
Mm-hmm.
He's another of the local players. Both of our goalies were local players as well, So we did have a heavy influx of heavy players, to be real honest with the team. I mean, you can go onto our team page. Some of them were north of the Tamaulipas border, and you know what? Just because they're from there doesn't make them foreign players. Maybe to the league it does, but to us it is local because they're part of our heavy. They're part of our market, I mean, we cater to them, and I've seen a lot of their fans make the trek up north just to come see, just to see them play.
Yeah, I mean, the market does not end because the Rio Grande River is there. So
exactly. I mean, it's just another opportunity to get showcasing talent from north of the border, like Reynosa, like Matamoros, and even as far out to Piedras Negras, where Salvador Luna is from, and even Fernando Moreno, who's directly from Monterrey. I mean, they've all joined the club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, but honestly, hopefully that the ownership, takes some well thought out decisions going forward for next year. See we got to see what worked, what doesn't work. What's going to have to happen with the squad. Is the coach gonna be moved as well? That's gonna be another question. Are they gonna get a new one, or are they gonna give Coach Quiros, the trust for come next season? So there's a lot of questions that always come up in off season, and it's normal, especially when the results weren't there. There's always a question of a feeling of how can I describe it? Like worry. It's like, are we going to have the same thing next year? Are we going to bounce back? So
I'm pretty sure the Rubalcaba family has already met over this. I just haven't been a part of the process only because, I'm still tied up trying to make sure that some of the legalities, or not legalities, but just some of the membership things that I have to do as a team representative, like making sure that I submit my team of the week, or making sure that I nominate rookies from our team that were first-year players like Miguel Rocha, Salvador Luna, and Reynold Fuentes. Those guys, that's just a part of our process, just because our season ended just doesn't mean that we stop working. No, I'm pretty sure that our work won't end just because the MLS season ends. Don't get us wrong. We're just going to be. It's just something that we just have to keep working on.
Yeah.
Name on their roster or two, but nothing has been concrete yet. They want to look at all the local talent first.
Yeah, Yeah, I feel like it's going to be essential in order to get the approval or the support from the fans. But
and another thing about MASL rosters, I mean, you're only limited to like to a 20-man roster.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just the most important.
Yeah, no, it hopefully it'll come for Barracudas, but as well as for the Coyotes. It's actually a good sign that we're starting to get more and more professional teams and semi-pro in the Rio Grande Valley. It just goes to show that people are starting in the United States are starting to look at the Rio Grande, as a potential. It's a potential market for their leagues, or as a potential to bring up talent for other teams to be moved around the league. So
yeah, and one of the things that I talked to management like immediately the season ended, like the day later, was that Ray expect more tryouts to happen here. Expect more tryouts to happen because I feel like half our roster should be fulfilled with local talent. In fact, I can count them off for you how many players, inactive and active rosters we had. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. We had 20 total players, both active and inactive, on the roster. That made up part of our team this year. We had a total of 29 players this year. 20 of those are local.
yeah,
For Mr. Omar to say that we don't do local, just visit our webpage at barracudasfc.com, and it's just something that the numbers don't lie.
yeah, that's true. And it's good that the question was asked and that you have the information. And say, what. We out of all of the teams that are here, we're the one that have the most local talent, and that's just simply how it is. And so, and honestly,
and I'm pretty sure teams like Turlock, California, have that same recipe, and they've been doing this for a long, continuous time. The Polito family out there in California, they're like our version of the Barracudas.
Yeah.
They do everything. They try to keep everything as much as they can local, and maybe swipe a few players from the Tijuana San Diego border.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see what happens with them, and just be sure that what I can say though is that the support for these teams going out to the games. It's really essential so in order for these teams to survive. So
exactly.
Yes. So be sure, like next year, be sure to head out and go to the games, invite your friends, and check them out. As Ray said, we have a lot of local talent that wants y'all support, and so. It'll really be a big boost for them to see that their hometown, their home region is there, supporting them, and trying to bounce back from a season like this to maybe becomes a success story like La Fiera was, or RGV Flash. It's baby step. It's baby steps.
I'm gonna share this quick story. The first year of the Barracudas, they didn't do so well either. Yet year 2, they were able to pick up a couple of players that went to UTB Brownsville. Maybe because they weren't local players, they were able to pick them up. They were able to pick up Luis Angel Launid, and voila, they made a little playoff run before being ousted by the Las Vegas Legends.
Yes.
So it can be done.
Yeah, it's just a process. So I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So now, Ray, we're going on with the CONCACAF Champions League. You know, it's been going on these past 2 weeks. You know, we already know that some of the teams have already played both legs. We know Tigres passed. We know Toronto passed. Currently,
Yawn on the first team you mentioned.
Shh, please. At least you know what? I can't say anything because you guys Rayados have already won it 3 times. So
3 straight.
Yeah, en la época dorada of Vucetich. You know, that was the golden age for Monterrey. And so now you have teams that are looking strong out there. Obviously you have America, who last week totally annihilated was Saprissa. And
yeah, they pretty much gave that hand slap of authority that, hey, we're here and not to mess around, folks.
Yeah, 5-1 was the score.
Let me bring you up to speed right now. Frisco right now is just looking at direct elimination right now. Frisco FC.
Yeah. So Tauro actually
right now.
Yes. So Tauro actually scored first in the 16th minute, and keep in mind they're playing in Frisco, so Frisco is home. So Edwin Aguilar in the 16th minute gave the Tauro the lead, and then Maximiliano Urruti tied it at the 32nd minute. Then in the 44th, Jesus Gonzalez gave Tauro the lead once again, and then the 50th, Mauro Diaz with a penalty has the game tied. However, the aggregate is in favor right now of Tauro with an aggregate of 2-3, since Tauro actually won 1-0 in their home. And then in the other game that's going on right now, you have Guadalajara, who a couple minutes ago were actually just winning 2-0. They're actually winning 5-0 now. They're beating Cibao 5-0. The aggregate score is 7-0. And they are in the 81st minute. Dallas is in the 78th.
Looks more like Chow.
I
said Cibao looks more like Chiao.
Chiao?
Arrivederci. Yeah. Goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, it was the first time being in a competition like this. You remember from what?
Dominican Republic.
The Dominican Republic. Yeah, you know, I don't think we've ever seen a team from the Dominican Republic play in these instances of the CONCACAF Champions League, which is already something for the Dominicans to be proud of. That team, you know, being able to make it to the knockout stages, losing against Guadalajara. Granted, Guadalajara has not been playing well in Liga MX, you know, in these past couple of seasons. But playing, you know, this kind of scoreline will bring up their confidence, you know, for the rest of the Liga MX season. You know, and number two, you know, just gives them some happiness in you know, trying to fight for, maybe they might not win or make it to the playoffs in the Liga MX, but maybe they'll try. Mm-hmm. They'll try and see if they can rescue something by winning the CONCACAF Champions League and finding that ticket to the Club World Cup. But along the way, you have teams like America. You have teams like Toronto, who's looking strong out there, and you have Tigres, who basically playing at 60%. He was able to win 5-3 in aggregate. You know, I don't know what you think, but I think what Tigres suffers right now is, you know, the lack of putting the ball into the net. They're not very accurate right now. They have a lot of shots on goal, but they're not as accurate as they should be. Yeah, they won 3-1, but out of how many shots?
Just going back to the Barracudas real quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Just real quickly. I think we had the same problem as Tigres. We had a lot of shots on target, just none of them found the back of the net.
Mm-hmm.
I think that may have summed up the best part of Barracuda season. But continuing on here with the CONCACAF Champions League, the dark horse to watch out for is Tijuana. Even though they played to a scrappy 1-1 draw in Tijuana yesterday, it's going to be a rather interesting two-legged draw to see who they get next. And I'm pretty sure that just looking at the draws here, that Toronto Tigres one is going to be extra luscious,
Yes. Okay, so basically, so we're going to be talking about the bracket. So right now, the only bracket that's set right now is the third quarterfinal, which is the Tigres Toronto game. The first quarterfinal is between the winners of Cibao Guadalajara and Sounders and Santa Tecla. So we know that Guadalajara made it to the next quarterfinal. So they're just going to be waiting on the winner of Santa Tecla FC versus Seattle Sounders. And right now, Santa Tecla has the advantage 2-1. The second quarterfinal is between
I'm just curious now. I'm just curious. Did Sounders even play with Sounders 2? That they sent S2 down there or something?
No, I think they played half, because they did have Nicolas or Lodeiro and a couple other starters as well. It was not all of them, but they are trying to take it seriously. So they probably just underestimated Santa Tecla. I think that's what happened. They underestimated them. They didn't go out with their best players. I really doubt that in Seattle, Sounders are gonna make that same mistake. I think this time they're actually gonna.
I think that we'll get the real 18 for Seattle.
Yes. Yeah, especially
and then
since
and then another bracket here I'm looking at is the Olympia of Honduras versus the New York Red Bull. That's going to be another interesting tie right there.
Yeah, because right now Olympia and Red Bulls are tied 1-1, and they have to go to New York for the return leg. So that's going to be an interesting matchup to see who makes it to the end, because they're both are decent teams. We know that Club Tijuana made it to the next level, so Tijuana is going to be waiting between the winner of Olympia and New York Red Bulls. And then, so for the last quarterfinal, it's between the winner of FC Dallas and Tauro and Club America.
Frisco.
Yes, Frisco. So America is just waiting on either Tauro or FC Frisco, because I really doubt, even though the away leg is tomorrow, I highly doubt that Saprissa will bounce from a 5-1 loss. Wait, is it tomorrow or today?
No,
today.
I don't think so.
It's today at 9. Yeah, there's no way. They're playing at Azteca.
Tauro in America will go through for that one.
Mm-hmm. So let me see. Have the scores, Steven, changed yet?
No, it's still 2-2. Frisco's still down, so.
Yeah, and they're in the 85th minute right now. So Omar says the Tigres squad, especially players like Guignac, Ener Vargas, suffer from overconfidence. You know it's true, Edson. Not to mention Nahuel. And against Toronto, they can't be overconfident. So yeah, that is true. In the first leg, Tigres was feeling very comfortable. They dominated the game. It was just at the last minutes, Nahuel doing his Nahueladas, that it cost us the game. It cost us to suffer more than we needed to, and it's been the same with Liga MX. So they've really got.
All right, look, I look at I'm looking here at our good resident San Antonio friend Harry.
Yeah.
Asking us for relegation and league expansion for Mexico.
Yeah, I just saw.
Here's the thing that I am really, really, really against Mexico system right now. You really want to have a great competitive league. However, here's the thing that I would do to change Mexican soccer. Financial fair play would be one. And then two, keep the Mexican second division as is. Now, those that want to move up, of course, invest money in your infrastructure, in your stadiums, fine. No big deal. But just when you're ready to compete with the big boys, be ready, What I would like to see, in all honesty, that would be the first step. Financial fair play, making sure that you don't have the multi-property stuff. And, of course, second division being the way it is. But then the next step would be adopt a full calendar, have instead of having too many tournaments, I would have a year-long tournament like they do in Spain, Italy, England, Germany. That's the way I would do it. And then from there, you would take your two worst teams, relegate them directly, have the two best from the Ascenso move up, and then you have the third best team from the Ascenso play the third worst team in the Mexican League, and if you play them a home and away series, ending it in the Ascenso field, whoever wins that aggregate series gets either promoted to Liga MX or gets relegated to the championship, depending on who your victor is.
Okay.
But I just don't like the suspension of the relegation. I really don't think it would be.
No, me either. And I think one of the criticisms I have for this current system is that it benefits the teams like America, teams like Chivas, teams like Cruz Azul, in which that they have to struggle for so long before they even are close to being relegated, compared to a new arrival, like in this case, Lobos WAP, who really have to win games and not lose a lot of points, because this system is derived on the number of games you play in the past 3 years. And so basically they'll divide the number of games you've played in those 3 years by the number of points you make during those 3 years. And obviously, if you have a team like Lobos, who is their first year or was their first year in the Liga MX, well, you only have just the number of games you have accumulated. And so, yeah, if you start winning, you're up high in that table, in the table of the relegation. But if you start losing, you went really high, you drop down really low in an instant once you let these points go. Whereas teams like America, it wasn't that long ago that America was last in the standings. Any other
or even Guadalajara.
Yeah.
Even Guadalajara.
Yeah. Atlas as well. And like technically in other leagues, they would have been relegated to the second division based on what you were saying, the system that you're putting out. But in this case, you're rewarding the big teams to be mediocre, in which it's no worries. Yeah, we're in last place. We're not relegated, and so I understand that there's a lot of money that to be lost if these big teams were to get relegated. So but it's no excuse to provide some blatant help to some teams and putting everything against, como dicen en español, remar en contra de la corriente for the Ascenso teams that want to come up. And so in the end, 9 times out of 10, the promoted team ends up getting relegated in the next year. Obviously, you have some exemptions like León and Necaxa, but that's because their organizations have enough money backing to get some decent squads. Whereas teams like Irapuato, Dorados, Lobos WAP, they have to rely a lot on they have to rely a lot on loans, rely on cheap players in order to try to compete in the Liga MX. So, it's just not fair. But in what's a constant in almost all of world soccer, money talks. So we also have another comment from Omar. He says, Bonilla, Decio, and all those so-called executives from Liga MX are trash. Of course, I'm pretty sure some owners like Fassi, Azcárraga, and even Vergara are in favor of this crazy idea of suspending relegation. Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Although some players actually came out and said that that's a dumb idea. I know when Tigres and America played, they actually came out and I think, was it a banner? And pretty much were against the idea of getting rid of relegation. So, it's going to be interesting. And if what Tom Marshall says that on Friday the details are going to be announced, I don't want to know how social media is going to react because I don't think they're going to be happy.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm already not a happy camper about that. I mean, it's just absolutely terrible because at the end of the day, you might see some job losses at the end of the day, and maybe some of these players, having to go look for jobs elsewhere. It's just an absolutely terrible thing to see at this point.
Yeah, because all these teams in the Ascenso, obviously the ones that qualified for D1 requirements, they're out there fighting in Ascenso to earn their place in Liga MX. For the league to say, oh yeah, you know what? No, you can't. You're not going to be able to move up for the next 2 years. Like, oh, okay, well, I don't have to invest a lot of money. What's the point if I'm not able to get promoted to the first division? So that's going to hurt. Harry says, my concern would be once it stops, does it come back? 2 years gets extended, then extended, and you get the point. Yeah, I feel you, Harry, because once they start seeing that the benefits to their pockets instead of the benefit to the game, they're gonna. I agree with your concern that they might make it permanent, and we've seen that. That I don't.
And like I said, the only way this might work, okay, if you're going to suspend relegation, you might as well jump to a year-long calendar with a Christmas break or winter break in between.
Mm-hmm. So
that's about the only way. I think that's the only way it works. Period.
So you would get rid of playoffs?
No, but if it were to go through, there's going to have to be a plan in place to where you're going to have to. Okay, we're going to suspend relegation. Okay, you would bring up like the likes of Dorados, mm-hmm. and probably even Celaya or some team that has like all the that meet requirements for like the playoff.
Yeah, because I know we talked about it last time during one of the power hours, in which I'm trying to see if I can find the list because. From what you can see on the chat, Omar is asking if it's just he believes that it's just 6 teams that are eligible to get promoted to the first division. And
Leones Negros, Dorados
mm-hmm.
are just 2 off the top of my head.
Yeah, because for example, teams like Correcaminos, because of their stadium, they can't be promoted if I'm not mistaken. I think if anything,
That's
if
correct.
you want, so if you want to go by stats, or not stats, but like attendance, not a capacity of the stadiums, if anything, you have Potros, Universidad Autónoma de Estado de Mexico, you would have, is Zacatepec eligible?
They do have the infrastructure.
Yeah, so based on infrastructure, you have Potros, you have Zacatepec, you mentioned Leones Negros, Dorados de Sinaloa, Celaya, Atlético San Luis as well. That's another one. who right now have the backing from Atletico Madrid.
I could also see them. Why not?
Yeah, because that's one. Actually, when they announced that the team was going to be bought by Atletico Madrid, they mentioned that their point of purchasing this team was to promote it to the first division, and now they're going to get rid of promotion. What's going to happen? More than likely, Atletico Madrid is like, you know what? We're out. And what's going to happen to San Luis? They're going to be in danger.
They'll buy out again.
Yeah, exactly. So it's extremely stupid how, all they care about is their money, the pockets. And it's the same thing with MLS, sadly, and soccer in general. They're always going to benefit the teams that are more marketable. And those are the ones.
Well, let's just say 25,000 was the minimum capacity for some of these teams to move up. And right now you have a number of 16 teams.
Yes.
Alebrijes would not count. Atlante would not count.
Did they
San Luis barely makes it by a hair.
Yeah. Lobos,
Cafetaleros and Tapachula, they would not make it.
Leones Negros
would barely miss out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get to Leones Negros in a bit. Cimarrones de Sonora would not make it. Correcaminos would not make it. Not even Dorados, just on this list.
Mm-hmm.
Juarez would not make it. Leones Negros, of course. But here's my point. Here's my point with Leones Negros. You're going to be sharing a stadium with Atlas. So what's the point of having a team using two different stadiums?
Or two teams using the same stadium.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that idea. I've always said my idea of soccer has always been for every soccer team there is they've got to use like their own stadium. They got to have like their own infrastructure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Moving on with the list that I have in front of me. You got Mineros would not make it. Murciélagos de los Mochis would not make it. Here's a surprise thing that really caught my attention. Potros de la Autónoma del Estado de México. Their stadium capacity, and it was full when Toluca played there.
Yes.
32,603. They used the Universitario Alberto Chivo Córdoba.
Mm-hmm.
Tampico Madero, they would miss out. Venados de Yucatán, they would miss out.
Mm-hmm.
Zacatepec, they would need to miraculously add about 700 seats to even make the list.
Yeah.
The only other team close on this list that they would have to add seats would be Celaya. They would need to add about 2,000 seats. And then if you go a little further down the line, would be Cafetaleros de Chiapas.
Mm-hmm.
They use the El Olímpico de Tapachula. They would need to add about close to 4,000 seats to even be considered for promotion purposes.
Yes. Yeah, I mean it's you're pretty much making with these limitations in place. You're forcing these teams to make a huge investment that they're not even sure is going to be worth it, because not like I said, 9 times out of 10 the promoted team just ends up going back to Ascenso MX, and who knows when they might make it back to the final and look for that position in order to be promoted again, so.
Yeah.
So and most of these teams they don't have those resources right now. Pretty much it's just like those teams with big stadiums are the ones that have a decent financial backing to even think about getting promoted. So
Yeah, so the only two teams that I would take from the aforementioned list would be Atlético San Luis and Potros de la Autónoma del Estado de México.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, Leones Negros came and went, and they did nothing. Dorados as well. I would like to see Celaya back, though. Just because of their just because of the history of a team in that city. But that's, I mean, that's just me.
They have a fairly small pitch, but it was interesting to stay up like until midnight when I was like a teenager watching their games on TV Azteca.
Yeah,
those games were fairly nice to watch. In fact, I can recall them having a Croatian center back, and they would have a Carlos Alberto Pavon Plumer.
Oh, yes.
As their main focal point of attack.
Yes.
That team was pretty fun to watch until they would never make the final 8 tournament.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Celaya with Pavon was very interesting to watch. They made it fun. And obviously, from the history of Celaya, they've had players like Butragueño, Hugo Sanchez. Did he play with them as well? Yeah.
Yeah, he played for a little bit. Even Gustavo Nápoles.
Yeah, El Gusano.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was an interesting project from the beginning. Now it's just pretty much relegated and not that big of an importance in Mexican soccer because the sport has evolved. The sport has evolved in a way where you have to have so much financial backing. Well, this is why you see teams like America, teams like Tigres and Rayados, always fighting for that top spot because they have so much money to spend in good players. I mean, Tigres, even their bench players would make a pretty decent team in the Liga MX if there were a completely different team from Tigres. So that's why you mentioned.
The thing that's really bothersome about the. Here's a really thing that's really bothersome about Liga MX. Okay, they want to compete with the best European teams on the planet on the national level. I guess it just all starts locally in your domestic league, and this is not a way to do it. I'm sorry. I mean, the MLS and the USA had a nice little run. I think we've all seen the consequences to that.
Yeah.
Just because you export players to go play in Europe and maybe bring them back to the United States and then maybe send them back out to Europe, I don't think that's not the right formula. You look at the formulas that England, Germany, and Italy have done, and even in France and maybe even in Brazil.
You mentioned
they've been pretty successful, and I think Liga MX is taking a major step backwards.
I really do not think that England would be a really good example because I don't think that for a country who invented soccer.
But
the Premier League también.
They have probably the most competitive second division league in the world. They probably do.
Yeah, but I mean the Premier League is full of so many.
It has not shown it. Just give me the floor here.
Yeah.
Even though they haven't shown a lot of prominence in the national stage, they've made other countries a little bit better. You look at Wales, for example. You look at Northern Ireland, for example. Yeah, watered down, inflated Euro Nations tournament. Okay, it's fine, but they were able to come 1 and 2 in the European qualifying groups, and they made a nice little cup, a Euro run.
Mm-hmm.
Now you look at the MLS and even Liga Ascenso MX. They've provided a lot of good players for Central America, and look what they've done to us. It's like they've used those leagues against them. So to say it's not working would be a vast understatement.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, you do have a point. You know, that's one of the things that I said about MLS, that it has helped the Central American teams, the national teams, to develop to where they're at right now, to the point where they've eliminated USA for this World Cup, and they were close to eliminating Mexico in last World Cup. So yeah, so I mean, these leagues are helping, but they're not helping who they should. Now, obviously,
And now that just comes down to like the infrastructure of the teams, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look at Guadalajara. I mean, they just have a team full of Mexico-born players. Now, I would like to see an MLS team pull that off. I would really love to see that. Not count on any foreigners and say, you know what, we're gonna start an MLS team. Say Cincinnati. That would be a heavy loss for USL, but that would be something that I would like to see Cincinnati do that first. You know, have a full team of Americans. You know, build them up with seasoned veterans like Michael Bradley, Josie Altidore, Quint Dempsey, and Kyle Beckerman, and maybe even Tim Howard. You know, but fill them up with ex-national team players and build up your USL team to be all Americans, and then boom, let it rise up.
Yeah, I mean the only problem with that I would see is, you know how lawsuit happy we are here in the United States, and so doing something like Chivas does over there would be almost impossible here in the United States.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's actually proven, and I feel like it's actually been something where Chivas at this moment, they're shooting themselves in the foot in regards to that, because they're limiting themselves to just Mexican-born players. And I think I mentioned this. I don't know if it was in a chat I had with you before or somebody else or with the guys from the Peel. But since Vergara and Chivas limit themselves to just Mexican-born players, and their academies aren't bringing up like they used to, aren't bringing up Mexican players like they used to, they're going to have to go buy from other teams. And knowing that Chivas depends so much on Mexican players, they jack up the price on their Mexican-born talent if they want to go to Chivas. And that's one of the things that Vergara has said many times, you know, in his style, obviously. But he's like, you know, saying like, hey, you know, I have an unfair disadvantage when it comes to negotiations, because every time Chivas enters in discussions, the price is elevated so much that I don't see a value in these players.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, so it's it'll be interesting to see, and I know you'll probably be checking out what Liga MX actually announces on Friday in regards to that. I'll be also on the lookout as well. You know, checking out how the Mexican media reacts to the news. But I know for sure that it's gonna be a bad idea, and I think instead of helping the league, it's gonna hurt the league. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely, it's gonna be something to keep an eye on Fox Deportes and ESPN Deportes to see what they come up with, and even Televisa for me down here since I have access to those channels. You know.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be rather interesting to see what they come up with.
Yeah. Okay, so we do have some final scores from CONCACAF Champions League. FC Dallas actually won 3-2 today. However, if I'm not mistaken, away goals play into this matter since they're tied in aggregate 3-3, and Tauro scored more away goals, which means that Tauro advances in the CONCACAF Champions League and eliminates FC Frisco from this tournament. Guadalajara beat Cibao 5-0. And
Ciao.
Ciao Cibao. And America should and the America and Saprissa game should start at any minute now. So
no, that just started.
Yeah,
I'm not even going to bother watching that.
Yeah, what's the point? It's already. They could even put Fuerza Águila in there, and they'll still be able to pass.
They can park the bus.
Yeah,
the actual bus. not the term defensively, but you can put in the real bus.
I remember. That reminds me of the time we were watching the Dynamo versus RGVFC game. You remember when the bus was parked outside the bus, and you made the comment like, "If you really wanted to park the bus, you parked it in the wrong place."
Yes.
Yeah.
At the rate that the Dynamo were scoring on us, yes.
Yeah.
I probably would have brought in a forklift and put the bus instead of a goalie.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. But we already passed the 2-hour time limit, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap up this show. Ray, thank you so much for being on today. It was a pleasure, like always.
Definitely. I hope to be covering the team Toros here soon if I can get a response soon.
Yeah, I'll keep in contact right now off air and to see how that is going on. But thank you, David. Thank you, David. He says it's a great show. And David, are you an Atlético San Luis fan? Because I know he made a comment, and he said that our colors. So I think David is actually an Atlético San Luis fan, and he's not happy that they changed their colors. So I mean, it's he is. Money talks, and if the money says like, oh, you have to change your colors, you have to change everything, pues ni modo.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Con dinero baila el perro, como dicen. But yeah, Ray, thank you so much, man. I'll keep in contact with you, and as far as this offseason, see what kind of news have been coming up for both Barracudas and FC Brownsville, and really hoping to have you for Toros as well for this season.
By the way, America just scored.
Yeah.
I don't know how they did it. Probably a slingshot goal, but that series is over with.
Yeah, no, they're dead already. Saprissa's dead.
Yeah.
There's no way they
can use that Simpsons meme about leave him alone. He's already dead.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, look, when the Mexican teams want to, it's a pretty big difference between Liga MX and the rest of the teams. But if they start playing like Tigres, where they're overconfident and don't take advantage of the chances to kill them, or figuratively, they get the motivation like, hey, you know what, these teams may be beatable, and so you end up getting complicated. You find yourself, the team catches up to you, or you find yourself losing to these Central American teams. But man, yeah. I'll go ahead and I'll let you know, man, for next time, so you can be on the show as well. And cool. I'll talk to you right now in regards to the credential.
All right.
But all right, man. Have a good night, Ray, and hope to see you in the Valley as well.
All right.
All right, man. Good night. Bye. All right, guys. So that's gonna be it. That's gonna be it for today's episode of Down in the Valley. Be sure, if you guys haven't liked the video, be sure to give it a like, and be sure to also follow me on my social media: Twitter @DownInTheRGV, Facebook, facebook.com/downintheRGV, soundcloud.com/downintheRGV. Be sure to check out downintheRGV.com as well for my articles. Be sure to also check out our podcast on Twitter, on SoundCloud, on Stitcher, Apple Music, Google Play Store as well. Thanks to the Beautiful Game Network. Be sure to check out my friends' Beautiful Game Network as well at bgn.fm. Check out the other USL podcasts if you're interested. You know, we have a lot of plans for this upcoming USL season. So be sure to keep in touch with Down in the RGV. Hope you all enjoyed this episode, and we'll see each other on next Wednesday. My name is Edson Ochoa, your host for Down in the Valley, and we'll see each other next week, man. Guys, take care. Oh, and by the way, so let me see. Is there anything on? No, we already went over that. So I want to thank David Copeland Loredo, Harry Austin, Omar Beltran, my family, Javier Ochoa, Josefina, Victoria Ochoa, also Johnny, and Chad, Ray, of course, Carson, and Blues Fan. Thank you all for participating in the chat tonight, and we'll see each other next week. Take care. Actually, before I forget, next week, starting from next week, all Down in the Valley episodes will be on its own YouTube channel. So be sure to follow us on Twitter and on Facebook, as I will be posting the link to the new channel. So that way you won't be caught by surprise come next week and you come to the Peels YouTube channel and not find Down in the Valley there. So just giving you all a heads up, we are going to have our own individual or separate YouTube channel. It's going to help Down in the Valley out a lot in regards to some true, closer to reality figures as to how many people follow the podcast, the number of views, number of shares, number of subscribers more than anything, especially since we are so brand new. So we will be starting on our own channel, and I will be posting it on Twitter and on Facebook. So be sure to check that out as well. Ahora sí. Bien dicen el que se va, pero ¿cómo era? El que saluda mucho, pero nunca se va. Es que no me quiero ir, pero bueno. Bye.